And we are live, everybody. Welcome to this week's Café Hangout.
It is a loaded cafe today. Thank you for everyone joining us. It's John Pollock, Wai Ting, and joining us live and in living color, the BDE, Davey Portman / David Portman, along with the Braden Harrington.
Hello.
Hello.
What's going on, guys?
Welcome back, guys.
We're in the post office.
We've missed you.
We're invading.
Invasion.
Yeah.
Yes. We didn't have t-shirts to hand out to everybody, but I think everyone knows who everybody is, hopefully,
Yes.
because people realize that not everybody looks identical. So we all are our own people.
The BDE invading the post office.
Yeah. It continues. So we just had a little show that we did together for patreon.com/upnext with you
Yes.
guys. You invaded us. And now we're returning the favor.
We did a home and home series.
Yeah.
Kind of. That was all done in this one room, but everyone gets the drift. We're going to be on Braden Davies' Patreon, patreon.com/upnext, UPNXT. And that is going to be up late tonight, Friday.
Yeah, late today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can check that out as we did our first, I don't know if only, Survivor Series draft. Do you want to explain what this concept was that you drummed up for us, Davey?
Yeah, so I thought we'd do something a little different leading into Survivor Series, and we played a little game where we had to come up with a 5-person Survivor Series team plus a manager made up of 1 tag team, 3 singles competitors, but you have to only pick from 1 from WWE, 1 from NXT, 1 from AEW, 1 from New Japan, and your manager is someone who's retired or deceased.
Yeah.
And only one person can be a past or present world champion. So
It was
a
a
lot
lot
of
of fun.
rules. And some of us went for a kind of theme thing, others didn't, but you'll have to listen to find out.
No, yeah. I thought we had a lot of fun doing that, and it was definitely something for Survivor Series weekend. It's like fantasy booking.
Yeah.
It was good.
One spoiler is that by the end of this show, you will know all the members of every team at the end. You will not have to wait and wonder who's going to be on this team if I buy this show on Sunday. So we do have complete teams at the end of this show. So check that out. Patreon.com/upnext with Braden and Davey, who I don't know how you guys find the time to even come over and chat with us. I feel like you guys are just putting stuff out. What has
You're
this been
lucky.
like?
I don't either, to
You're
be
lucky.
honest.
You're lucky.
It's been about 2 months now since you launched the Patreon. So tell us a bit about what your expectations were going in, and now 2 months in, the added workload and response.
Yeah, I don't think we really had expectations at all.
No.
I mean, expectations have been exceeded. We've had a great response from people so far, and we're being quite open with our patrons as well. We want to know what's working and what's not working, and everyone's been very positive so far.
Yeah, we watch NXT every Wednesday night, and we do a podcast, and it's free, and it's always free. But people were like, hey, we want to support you, and we want more content from you. So it kind of sparked that from us. So we did it. We took when USA launched, we launched as well. We thought that was a good time for NXT to launch, for our launch, I mean. So we did that. We created like these new show ideas, like the game that we just talked about, the Survivor Series show. It was just an idea we came up with. We came up with a show called Was Next, where we watch old NXT, and then we come up with this one that we do a bunch of the movie reviews. But we came up with this one called Best Match Ever, which I think is now we're just doing shows that we just like enjoy having conversations. It's like barbershop conversations about what's the best match ever, and that's just been so much fun.
I think
for
that's
us.
been my favorite show.
Yeah,
so
we did
far.
the Rock Austin WrestleMania trilogy, and that kind of like blew up. So we did Masawa Kobashi, and like people are giving us some good responses. So I don't know, it's just been a lot of fun. Definitely, it's something that's we're still in the shadow of post wrestling, but like we are trying to create like our own original kind of stuff. So we feel like we're doing a pretty good job because our response is good.
Can I say my favorite thing that I know that I listen to you guys?
Up next, Patreon supporter Wai Ting.
Well, yeah, but yes, of course. But my favorite show that you guys do is the one that you do once a month for your world champion tier.
Oh.
Like where you guys don't really talk about any specific show. You just talk about like what's going on in your life, and in particular that first episode that you did.
Oh.
I've never heard like Braden get so serious.
That was a shoot.
About
That was a
talking
shoot.
about like everything that happened. I guess when Fight Network let us go and everything that
This
followed.
is a cheap plug for my Patreon. If you want to hear some truths,
No, that was
Sign up to the
really
Patreon.
good. Like, and that's something I've always loved about you guys. Is just like when you guys just talk about anything, not even having to do with wrestling. I find that to be personally the most.
I found it really
stuff.
captivating. The first episode. I remember I was driving home by myself. Actually, I was on this long car ride and I got stuck in traffic for like an hour and a half. So I had this on, and I mean, it's we don't dwell too much on it, but I think it's like worth mentioning the fact that when everything went down with the Fight Network and stuff, like Wai and I were told, go away, we don't want you working here. Braden left on his own. And for a guy in your situation, Braden, that was a major step for you to take, and it's something that it was your choice to leave.
Right, yeah. I could have been podcasting about Impact Wrestling to this day.
You would have been hosting the new Law with Jeremy Borash.
Yeah, essentially. So I wasn't really cool with that. I decided to not do that, and kind of did my own thing. And this is my own thing now. And I scoped out in the indies of podcasting a young Davey Portman, and I found him, and we started becoming buddies. And I thought that this was kind of the right way to go about it. And I love watching NXT. And NXT is being so good. Like, even if you're a wrestling fan and you're not watching NXT, like, what's wrong with you? Watch it. It's so good. It's so crazy. It's exploding even bigger. And that's the show that I've been watching for so long and I know so much about. And well, you're a big wrestling fan as well. So we clicked instantly. And like, I don't want to say, oh, it's a gamble to just kind of start doing this, but like, we put a lot of time and effort into consistency. We learned that consistency is kind of key. And so every Wednesday when NXT is on now, we're going to be doing NXT Up Next podcast. And that's just what we like doing.
Thursdays, you do a bit brief review of
Yeah.
AEW as well.
Yeah, and I
to
really
get your
enjoy that
thoughts.
show because neither of us sit down and take extensive notes like we would do with NXT or our other reviews.
Right.
It's just we watch it and then we just go through it in about 20 minutes, half an hour, and it's a good debrief. And
Yeah, like last
especially
night.
with this Wednesday Night War thing going on, it's
wars.
good to reflect on it pretty much straight away, I think.
Last night we watched NXT. We did our podcast. We go live on our YouTube now. We kind of took a page out of your guys' book after NXT airs every Wednesday at 10:30 on our YouTube. You can go and follow us and join in and watch us do our podcast, the review on NXT. And then we've been doing the AEW ones on Thursdays, but those ones are also like the true hangover show.
Yeah.
As Davey Portman likes to bring out the bubbly and the
Cape Cods?
The Cape Cods. John's favorite
It's
drink.
once we finish the show on a Wednesday, it's we can wind down a little bit. It's nice.
Definitely. So it's been pretty wild that that like we chose to now do a Patreon, and it's like you said, you got to put more time and more work into it. But
I think if you want it to be successful, you do have to treat it like
For sure.
a job.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I don't have a day off now because
Yeah,
I
we
still
work a
work
lot.
at the bar as well.
We still have our jobs, yeah.
I've dropped like one shift a week
Me too.
and kind of moved my schedule around so it's different from how it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And Wednesdays and Thursdays are our days we work on the Patreon. So there's not really any downtime anymore, but it's good. And hopefully we can grow it to the point where maybe our other jobs we don't have to rely on so much. But that's going to be a way away, but we're happy with how it's growing so
yeah,
far.
we were overwhelmed with how many people have joined our Patreon.
It's really apparent that you guys are making your Patreon a priority, and it's not really just there, like for like a lot of I think other Patreons are
Yes.
just kind of there, to catch whatever if you feel like it. But you guys are actually putting effort into like making this into something special. So, really, really like happy to see how much you guys have done so far.
Thank you.
So
you.
what are we now? 9 weeks into this whole 8 weeks in. 9
So it
weeks
started
in?
on October 2nd was the first week. So, month and a half in almost.
And so
Plus a month.
in that time, you guys have been following NXT before and after. How would you say these changes have impacted that show?
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching NXT for so long. It's been an hour-long show. That's what wasn't like that was on the network. It wasn't a thing, and I can tell the difference. Like, they definitely have stepped it up. It doesn't feel like it's a developmental show at all. It feels like it's just a wrestling show that airs on a network TV, and that's what it is. So I feel like now that it's 2 hours, it's they did a good job.
I rarely feel the drag that
Yeah,
I
it
thought
doesn't-
might be a thing.
doesn't feel like
they've
that.
kept to their sort of plan, which is putting on hot matches,
Right.
as evidenced last night there were some fantastic tag matches last
Era
night on
revival,
NXT.
yeah.
And they haven't changed that. And maybe they could focus a little bit more on some characters and promos and things. But for me, I love watching just pure wrestling, and it's the show for me.
Yeah, definitely.
We're gonna get the numbers in about an hour from now. I think we all are assuming this is gonna be an NXT win this week. At least it should be. Providing, like, jumping ahead, they outdraw AEW this week. How do you view that number, Braden? If you're WWE, how do you react to that number next week and beyond? Do you look at that as something that main roster involvement leading to added viewership? Does that kind of change the focus of NXT, or is it back to kind of their long-term vision of what NXT is and just having the faith in that product?
It's weird. We talked about it on Up Next this week, just yesterday, but leading with the main roster guys involved, it obviously is showing like that there's more viewers. So clearly, I think they might continue to do that. We said that the next takeover isn't actually a takeover; it's War of the Worlds or World Collide. They could change that.
Royal Rumble weekend, correct?
Yeah. So if it's going to be, I doubt it's going to be Worlds Collide like we've seen it at Access. It's going to be a proper arena show. Yeah. I can see them continuing having crossover between the brands, and I think selfishly, I don't want to see it be a huge number, because as much as I love NXT, but I don't want them to go, oh, well, we need Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins on it every week. And that's not what I want from NXT.
No.
I think there's a danger in reading too much into, like, this was, your hotshot week to do this kind of thing, that if they were to do this 4 weeks in a row, it's not going to have the same impact.
No.
Much like we saw with, just bringing the NXT guys up, that first SmackDown, it was great. And now it's just become, over the course of 3 weeks, you accept that they're going to be on there and you lose that novelty. So I think that it's more so important how they react to this number. And if the idea is, well, now we have to have one person designated for NXT every week, that can work. Like, there can be interesting ways to incorporate main roster people, but to me, it shouldn't come at the detriment of what the show is designed to do, which is building up your new stars.
Absolutely.
I think long term, that really, I believe that will continue to be the goal of somebody like Paul Levesque. I don't think he'll want to rely on having a Raw Seth Rollins on every single show. But right now, during this particular period, maybe this type of I think, if you want to call it sort of like a easing into introducing the NXT roster to a main roster audience, I could see this going on maybe for at least another month if they find this that successful. I think primarily it's like the integration on the main roster shows that's really helping right now.
Yeah, I'd be happy with more of the sort of floating champions, like the women's tag team championship. I'd like to kind of maybe move the men's tag team championship to just one title, and have that go across. Because we were saying on the show last night, the main roster has good tag teams, but they're split across two brands, and it gets hopped around. And you think, if you just had one men's tag team across 3 brands, one women's, and that's the way you can have your stars come on NXT once every now and then.
Getting to see like O'Reilly and Fish versus the Revival to me last night was like, in wrestling, that type of style of match was like telling me WWE could be doing this every day. They have everybody under their roster, and this is the type of match that they could potentially do. Like, think about everything that's not even a part of this whole thing. Like your Mustache Mountains and everything. Everybody they have under a WWE roster, they could make this type of match.
The roster has never approached this level of talent that they have.
Why aren't we getting these matches?
Why isn't it happening?
Why are they saving it for a studio in front of 500 people instead of their arenas?
Why is it
you could be putting on these matches?
Yeah, something in wrestling. There's like my 2 big gripes in wrestling is, why is there borders of, like, back in the day, there was a hot talent who's all of a sudden an up and coming wrestler. They'd put him on TV really quick, and then he'd catch on and be a star. Like, that's just kind of maybe not what's. They're waiting till you blow up already and get that hot rocket, and then they take it, and then it's not cool anymore. So I feel like that's kind of something. Another thing. So it's like the borders of, this is main roster. Well, this can't happen because he can't fight him because they're not on the same show. It's like, who cares? Just wrestle. They're wrestlers. Like, if this was a sport, then you could still have baseball team. It's different, but it's not. But another thing is also, like, general managers is the thing. I can't watch main roster wrestling or whatever you call it because there's always someone being like.
So they've gotten rid of that. For now.
Yeah, exactly.
You want them to bring it back?
No, I don't want that. I'm enjoying that. Right. So when NXT turned to 2 hours, I'm thinking, okay, it's going to start with the whole WWE style with the everything, and it's not. They haven't even done that. There's not even a lot of like promos that in NXT thus far. It's a lot of just wrestling, and that's kind of I personally watch wrestling for like the matches, the quality. I get so into the storytelling of that, and they take that away from me in WWE sometimes. So I don't know, but watching all this kind of connect and stuff, I don't know. I also feel like going to the main roster people invading, when it all started with this Finn Balor turn, I feel is when it kind of felt more natural, and now that's kind of taking the stinking that up, because you're bringing in all these other people at the same time, and you're teasing your Kevin Owens and stuff, which is really cool and it'll bring ratings, but how many people are we going to bring into this?
It's just WWE killing anything.
Yeah, it's
anything
like,
that
oh,
gets
it's cool.
popular. It's
Yeah.
like the Fandango theme gets popular, so they turn it
Overkill
into
it.
a meme and overkill it. And it's
Yeah.
been the same with these invasions. We had 4 matches ending with run-ins on NXT yesterday.
Yeah. We're not
It's
used to that on NXT.
And as I said, do we really need Hawkins and Ryder running out at the end of the show? Like, we don't. You
Why-
had
why
you
do
had
they
your
care?
angle with the men, your angle with the women, and that's it. But it's the NXT thing was great on that SmackDown when everyone was stranded in Saudi Arabia. Let's do that every single week. And it's like, well, come on, be
much.
creative, guys.
They've had a really strange task of having to build to 2 separate pay-per-views in this stretch. A bigger challenge than certainly they've had on Raw and SmackDown. How do you feel like NXT has done?
I think very well. Just little touches, like at the end of that SmackDown, Ciampa looking over at the gold. Last night, Ciampa's running out to kind of save NXT, but gives a knee to the head of Adam Cole on the way.
Cole on the way there.
And I think that's refreshing, because we haven't seen that on main roster. When like DIY last year, or beginning of this year, moved up to Raw for a few weeks, when they were you knew they were about to have that huge
Clash.
I think they're effectively building to each thing, and it was like last week when all the different like factions were warring against each other, and I think they've done it really well. And you've got to keep on top of it. You kind of got to be following the stories as a fan, otherwise it is confusing. But they have had attention to detail there.
I enjoyed it too. Just the fact that you could have somebody like Tommaso Ciampa want to get in the ring and attack Seth Rollins while making sure that you retain that rivalry with Adam Cole. I think it shows I think a deal of respect for your audience to not just say, oh, they're teaming together all of a sudden.
I think that when you look at the totality of this 1 month promotion, I think coming out of it, I think that Adam Cole has greatly benefited from this. I think that he has been positioned as the top guy in NXT, and I think that at the end of this weekend, if you look at the idea that he's going to have the WarGames match and then likely defending his title on Sunday in a really hot match, that I think Adam Cole comes out of this really feeling more popular than he did before this.
And a ladder match just in the same week.
Yeah,
as
poor
well.
guy.
Match
Poor
on
guy.
Wednesday
Poor guy.
as well. This has been an incredibly busy week for him.
I've liked the build for WarGames and Survivor Series, but it's always the same thing for these. It's like the brand supremacy, so it's kind of just cheap, like lame. But at the same time, I was more into the women's WarGames build, because it's like it hasn't been a thing before. And
what are the stakes you would add? Like, what do you think would be something that would be of interest that could make this valuable beyond, essentially nothing?
Yeah, I mean, it's like to solve issues, like that's pretty much it. I mean, Shayna Baszler's been running the women's division for so long, and literally her whole team is like challenged her for the title and like lost. So it's also just kind of weird. But same with the men's. There's not really. I'm not sure why the match is happening. I didn't really know there was a War Games for the men's until they just kind of threw away comment one time. So I would say the build for the War Games for me wasn't as, like you said, there's not really any stakes. But the women's one I'm more interested in as well. But then when you go over to Survivor Series, I'd say I'm a little bit more excited for that show than War Games this upcoming weekend, which is odd for me. But
I think for match quality, it's more of one of those sort of WrestleMania weekend dream cards,
Yeah,
rather
exactly.
than like who you don't watch main roster at all. I catch up with you guys and watch it when I'm in, but really I don't need to know the story for Roderick Strong, Nakamura.
Yeah,
and AJ
that's the
Styles.
match I want to see the most this week.
And realistically, it's probably a done story if they are doing
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
But
So
I just want to see the matches, and I think that's what makes Survivor Series interesting this year.
definitely.
We have a lot of people that I think want to speak to the BDE in the
Okay.
Post Wrestling Cafe. So let's go to the phone lines right now and get to this caller. Caller, you're on with Braden and Davey in Post Wrestling. What's up? Can you hear us?
Hey, this is Tim from Ohio. Can you guys hear me?
Tim.
Hi,
Tim, what's going on, Tim?
Yeah, I met all you guys in New York at the live show.
Yes.
But, Brayden, to answer your question, if you're not watching NXT, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people, like, the cancel culture is like a buzzword now. But I can tell you, I mean, for years, just WWE wasn't scratching my itch. But after the Khashoggi thing with the Prince, I was just done. I don't pay attention to WWE. I don't give them my money. I don't watch them.
It's fair. Definitely fair. A few of our friends canceled the network.
Sorry, but are you making an exception for NXT, or are you not watching NXT for that reason?
No WWE, period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a tact I'm going to disagree with. I mean, it was... I think that there is something that if you're going to be following WWE, there are concessions you're going to have to make from a certain moral standpoint that, I mean, for some, it's going to be the third rail that they are not going to touch, that it's just too much for them and they don't want to support this company. And you can't argue with that if that's where your stance is. But that is a negotiation that I think fans have to make a lot within professional wrestling and not just WWE.
And I'm not going to lie, it's not fun. I live an hour from Cleveland, Ohio. Johnny Gargano is one of the guys.
Have you been to the pizza place?
I've never been to the pizza place. No.
Okay. Let us know when you go there. You could go there. They're not involved with the WWE. You could go and try the Gargano's pizza.
That's true, but I mean, yeah, it does suck because EC3 was Mike Hutter, Raymond Rowe, Johnny, M-Dog 20. Those were the guys that got me into indie wrestling in like 2006. And now most of those guys are in WWE, and they're just gone to me.
Yeah,
What will it take?
There's a rumor that EC3 is in WWE.
What will it take for WWE to get you back, or is it that far gone now?
I don't know, because here's the thing. You guys are saying, oh, this one thing is so great now, but it sounds like, I mean, my God, I don't, and the proof is I'm subscribing for Post Wrestling right now. Brian Alvarez's show is running on Sports Byline, which I used to listen to, and now I'm not, because he just sounds absolutely miserable. And what is most of what he watches and covers? The main roster WWE.
Yeah,
it's at a time now where I think that there's this interesting like wedge between fans that will believe that there is so much complaining and criticism, while at the same time I think you're now getting so many more alternatives that I think it does shine a light on WWE, that what is often just given a pass is more scrutinized now, because you are seeing alternatives of wrestling can be done in a much more satisfying way that is less insulting, that if something is teased, it will be played out upon, that logic does matter in certain places. And all of these complaints, it's filling a vacuum that the WWE has created, that it's often, I think, taken for granted by the company of what their fans will just simply accept and move on. And now that you have alternatives, it's going to amplify that volume, I think.
Thank you for the call, Tim. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone calling in today. We're going to try and keep them brief because we want to get as many people on as possible. If you want to give us a call, 732-800-4423 or Skype in, searching for Post Wrestling. We're also going to get into a preview of both shows coming up Saturday and Sunday night. But let's do another phone call before we start our preview.
Back to the phone lines. Hansi, you're on. What's going on?
What's going on, guys? How are y'all? How are all of you?
Yo, what's good, Hansi?
What's good, man. I just gotta say that as much as I between NXT Raw and SmackDown and like the uncontrollable chaos that's like been going on, especially like on NXT. I was kind of hoping that there would be a kind of a break in the sense that there would be like more of a promos setting up some of these matches.
I agree.
And I kind of dislike that. Like, I understand Triple H is like the lead guy in all this, but it always seems like it's just people doing his. Like, you could have guys on the main roster basically saying that, Triple H was molding us, but he basically left us in the dust, and he's gonna do the same thing to you guys. Like, I would have much preferred Regal, being the main guy, actually, taking the lead, and I guess because they don't have general managers anymore on the main rosters, but I would have liked William Regal to actually take the the lead instead of Triple H.
Thank you, Hansi.
Yeah, I think you go with, it's just Paul Levesque is so synonymous as the person attached with NXT. I really don't mind that because at the very least, as I said this week, is that at least you have had your spokesman in Triple H, and you can at least understand what NXT is fighting for in all of this, that here is the underground group that is trying to prove that they are equal, if not superior, than Raw and SmackDown. But in the opposite direction, what are Raw and SmackDown fighting for? Like, it's just, to me, you have to pretty much write out your own storyline in your head to make sense of what are they fighting for? Why do I want to see them win? And I think when you eliminate that and put that onus on the audience, it's just bad storytelling when you have to be the one to put the whole story together.
Like, do you remember last year SmackDown lost every single match at Survivor Series?
Oh, yeah.
That story's already there. That's why SmackDown want to win this year.
Totally.
That's so easy to introduce.
Though, everybody switches places.
Everyone
so
switches,
really,
but you can still, I mean...
That's another thing. I'm watching the Invasion thing, and literally all the people have been through NXT. Mm-hmm. So why would they give it shit?
You have, like, Street Profits all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's what made me so mad. And you could tell the face on Montez was just like...
It's unfortunate timing as well, because we've just had the draft. If Survivor Series was in 6 months' time and you've really solidified these brands and had them, apart from maybe your women's tag, had them very unique to their brands, this would be such more of a bigger deal when you're seeing all these crossovers. But and it's just unfortunate timing with Fox and its Survivor Series in November every year. And
it was always something that they would do with the Survivors, that it was like 1 month, Raw and SmackDown hate each other. But for 11 other months, it's like when they would do the Superstar Shakeup, there was no discontent from performers that were moved Raw to SmackDown, vice versa. They came out with smiles on their faces. There's no animosity throughout the whole year that even gives you the perception of a grudge between these groups, that, of course, there's not going to be any emotional stakes for the audience to care one way or the other. I think that this year they got the shot in the arm because it is the involvement of NXT and getting to see pairings that are fresh, that audiences are always going to crave, fresh blood being injected and interesting pairings that you don't typically see.
Back to the phone lines, and apologies if you can't get across. We only have one line, so please keep calling in. We'll be going probably all the way up until the numbers come in about 45 minutes. So back to the phone lines right now. Caller, what's up?
Hey, it's Paul from New Jersey, guys.
Hello,
hey,
Paul.
Paul.
Man, I wanted to start off. There was two things on my mind. First, with the Jim Cornette thing, and I do lean left in my policy. Over the past 5 years, I have gotten.
Oop. Sorry,
lost you.
Yeah, sorry, Paul. Please call back. We're probably having some connection issues. We'll have to take your phone call again another time. Jared, you're on the line. What's up? Hello, Jared. Hello.
Hey, guys, are you there?
Hey, we're here.
Go ahead, Jared. What is your question this week?
Guys, just before, I think I heard Davey talking about what an incredible schedule Adam Cole has this week with the ladder match and then the TakeOver match and then at Survivor Series as well. It got me really thinking. I only was just able to finish consuming this week the match between Moxley and Omega. And the reason it took me that long to actually consume was it was a match that I did have problems and it was hard to get through because of the style of match that it was. Am I wrong in thinking that a match like that where it was far too long, it was two wrestlers that were incredibly talented that I think got put in this sort of garbage match? It was goofy with all the change and mousetraps. and yet the bumps that they took and the barbed wire and the glass and the actual cutting of flesh and stuff. Am I wrong in thinking that this is somehow worse, or it should be taken differently to the guys who put themselves through such physical tolls every weekend, like a Darby Allin and his coffin drop on the side of the ring, or Pentagon Jr., doing a destroyer off a ladder through one of the Young Bucks? Like, is this somehow different? Where's the moral compass gauge? Where should we be looking at this type of match in comparison to guys who actually put themselves through physical tolls each and every week in hard-hitting physical matches?
The way I see it, I think when Wai and I reviewed Fyter Fest, we had this kind of conversation, and it's one of those things, the barbed wire, the thumbtacks, all that, is going to get such a different reaction from an audience, because I think everyone at some point has like pricked their thumb on a needle or something like that and knows the pain, but also it's a flesh wound, so that's going to heal and isn't really going to have long-term effects on your body. So part of me, as much as I'm not a huge fan of that style of match, you kind of think the longevity there, rather than say an Ibushi and Naito who are just repeatedly dropping each other on the heads, doing hard way headbutts and things like that, which, as you said, like your moral compass, which way do you lean on? And personally, I think taking a backdrop on some barbed wire, it's going to suck, don't get me wrong, but in a week's time, you're probably going to be healed up and it's not going to affect you.
That's kind of how I feel.
Headbutts would hurt.
To me, anything to do with concussions or the neck, that stuff, often you really can't recover from. And that, to me, any risk of permanent injury, I'm not really a fan of.
Or chronic pain.
Chronic
that
pain.
You're gonna have.
Like things like thumbtacks, obviously there's a great deal of risk involved, but there's I think a way to do it safely so that you can recover from it and that doesn't affect you long term. Anything can go wrong at any time, of course, but I think calculated risk in my wrestling. And to me, a thumbtack is not something I would do all the time, but I would still consider it a calculated risk.
And gets a huge reaction and maybe bigger than a German suplex to the back of the neck.
Well, I think Lego would hurt more, though. That's more of a
Than
reliable...
thumbtacks?
I don't know. Like, realistically, there needs to be a way to test what could fuck you up more.
You could do it.
Yeah.
I don't
Hey,
know if
that
I'll
could
get
be
that
a world
guy.
champion tier.
Yeah,
Let's test it out. Tread on a piece of Lego and tread on a thumbtack.
Because,
Which one hurts
Lego
more?
could lead to more severe injuries than an actual thumbtack.
I got Lego, so if you want to
Yeah.
test right now. Back to the phone lines. Gary, you're on. What's up?
Hi guys, long-time listener, first-time caller from the UK.
Long time, first time.
Hey, I loved the NXT show last night, but I'm a bit worried that they kind of blew past all these big returns like Drew McIntyre and even Shinsuke and things like that. Do you think that's going to hurt them down the road?
Yeah,
well, I mean, it depends if you're going to be leaning on this. I mean, you either view it as, well, this is a Survivor Series, this is our one night to do this, and we won't revisit these main roster guys showing up for another year. But if the idea is, well, this rating was great, we want to continue this, the novelty is going to wear off. What was it? Too many guys showing up last night? I mean, to me, once you're going above 2 or 3, it kind of just becomes a blur. Like, no one is going to have the same impact of the first one. Becky got a huge pop. Rollins got a notable pop. But it's, to me, was there anybody caring that Ryder was there? Was there anybody caring that the Street Profits were there? No. So it just becomes a flood of people where it's diminishing returns.
They're people to wear shirts. Let's be honest. They're generic bodies to put on whatever shirt that they're supposed to wear.
Like you just said, Drew McIntyre. I was like, oh yeah, he did show off, didn't he? Yeah.
Well, they want to pick and choose as well. Who is, like, when Asuka came back, they made it very clear she had this huge run in NXT. They wanted you to remember that this is her return to Full Sail. Whereas I think that closing segment last night was, no, these are Raw and SmackDown guys. So
although they did
forget that they were
They
ex-NXT.
did strategically pick people that had been through NXT, though, for the most part. Like, we had Nakamura, I guess, Cesaro even.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
But they had champions, but they didn't really even recognize them. They had 3 champions, but
True.
they didn't even say that.
It was weird.
Thank you for the call, Gary. Back to the phone lines. Caller, who is this?
Hey, it's Paul from New Jersey again.
Paul, sorry we got disconnected there. Please finish your thought.
Oh, no problem. I was just saying that, like, I am a person who, like, does get tired of the PC stuff sometimes. But with how do you not understand what you said was so stupid? I mean, a bucket of chicken in Ethiopia, it's like you should be ashamed of yourself. And I think partnering that with other stuff he said, I think I'm just done with that guy. And, you know, I don't want to focus on the negative too much because, I mean, we've seen so much great wrestling lately on NXT and AEW and even stuff with Ray and Brock. But, and especially like, I get so excited when an Aleister Black promo occurs, I think just like the rest of the board for you guys. And I also want to say I've been loving my favorite thing on the BDE Patreon is What's Next, because I came back into wrestling around like 2013, 14.
Okay.
So I missed some of that stuff, and it's really been cool to kind of like catch up on it and see what you guys think of it.
Wow.
So there's a lot of great stuff going on, but I wanted to ask you, you know, because I didn't want to just be all negative, but with the Lashley, Lana, and Rusev angle, I wanted to say some nice stuff in this crap sandwich, but this to me, and I do have a tendency of sometimes asking you guys questions you can't possibly have the answer to, but it seems like I know in the past Lana has said some really stupid things in her behaviors, and I know Rusev has been unhappy. What part of you, do you think there's any chance that this is like a punishment angle of you guys didn't do the things we want and you've stepped out of line, so now we're going to, you know, punish you a little bit?
I feel like this is more of an answer for John Away, but I want to step in because I'm a big fan of Maria Kanellis for years, one of my favorites ever. And then I feel like they were going in this direction with Maria and Mike Bennett, and then all of a sudden they're off TV. It's gone. It's disappeared. And now, for some reason, the word, like the cuckolding thing was brought into that. And now all of a sudden, it's like it's brought into a different thing.
You kind of have to, like, I mean, look at some of that and maybe the track record of, like, I don't know, items like this, gimmicks like this, and in particular, just these two recent scenarios. And is it a coincidence that they are both going to, I would say, somewhat outspoken members of the roster on social media? People who might have been, you know, having contract negotiation issues or whatnot. We can only speculate because we don't know. Because I do think there's also a real possibility that Vince McMahon thinks this is the best way to get these people over, and that in his mind, there's nothing wrong with this.
I also think kind of we as the fans are partly to blame, because how often are people still clamoring for the Attitude Era? Like, people have glorified the Attitude Era, like the late 90s, early 2000s, where this shit happened all the time. And to be honest, it was kind of terrible then.
Yeah.
But with, like, rose-tinted glasses and hindsight, everyone's like, oh, it was so good back then. Like, when fuck all this PG nonsense we have now. And they're like, all right, you want that back? Here it is. And we're like, oh, no, actually,
we
don't
think about
like
the
that.
Attitude Era. We want Rock and Hogan. We don't want Choppy or PP. We don't really want, you know,
and I think there's
Brian Shamrock.
And I think there's a distinction that I think that the main complaint now is that these characters are so packaged in such a way that there is zero spontaneity. And I think that is the biggest difference, that you watch a segment like Jericho leading a promo with the Inner Circle and playing off the crowd and just having that ability to just freestyle. And that is just, you know, that's a small example, but I think that is something that you never see in a WWE ring. It's just, it is so packaged, and I don't think people are clamoring for Naked Mideon or Mae Young. There's a lot of shit from the Attitude Era, but I think that there was a general ethos at that time, especially in the late 90s, that it was allowing personalities to be amplified and have that leeway that is so foreign from today's main roster product.
Like, I'm a 28-year-old dude. I would love to see like I loved the Edge and Matt Hardy, all that stuff. Like, that is a way to get you interested in the match. I love when you bring in like sex and relationships into this. This is a show, a weekly TV show.
Well, let me tell you though, that was only 2005. That same portrayal of Lita today would be absolutely appalling. And there would be so much criticism of Lita being positioned in the way she was.
Definitely. I think there is a better way to get me into matches that involve like relationships and sex like that. The better, me and you could write a better angle in 5 minutes where Lana got caught cheating with Bobby, and then they're instantly heels. You get the heel heat. It's not hard to do. It's so simple. Watch how many movies, how many TV shows where sex is instantly brought in, brings you in. You want to know what Rusev, like, I watched the Saudi show, and I will not lie to you, 0.00.3% of me was like, okay, but is Lashley are they gonna fight now? Because there should be so much animosity between these two men. And then I was like, I don't really care.
And
then
Rusev should be a hero here,
Yeah,
but he
he
keeps
should be a
losing.
hero.
So you go, not only has your wife left you, but
Yeah.
you look like a loser
it's just
as
dumb.
well.
It's just dumb. Like watch. You would think that it should be working in these kinds of stories, but instead we get this weird. It's just so stupid.
Back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on with the BDE and Post Wrestling. What's up?
Oh, hey, how are you?
Uh-oh.
He's the hero of wrestling himself. Brandon
I
from
thought we
New Jersey.
reached our quota this week with Brandon, but he's back for more.
Yeah, I was thinking about not calling it because I think you've heard enough of me.
If you want to listen to this week's Rewind Away covering Heroes of Wrestling, Brandon joined us for 25 minutes. And Brandon, it was like the most cohesive discussion we've ever had with you.
I know, right? Especially when we never met, right? We could have had a cohesive discussion.
But the goal, the key is get Brandon just an hour before he has to go to work. That is when he's in prime Brandon form. Right now, God knows what Brandon's been doing in the lead up to this call, but we're always grateful to have you on the show, Brandon.
I love you guys. Was that one question from that show that I was on? Was 99? Was that peak of his powers, Iron Sheik, with the Stern Show appearances and stuff like that, or was that before his run?
That was around the time he was starting to. I don't know when he first went on Stern. I want to say it was more into the 2000s that he started doing. The Iron Sheik. It's a very tragic story because his daughter was murdered several years after that Heroes of Wrestling show, and I mean it. You don't recover from something like that, and I think you have to look at the Iron Sheik. That as much as he's looked at as this comedic, outspoken figure, this is a man that went through a horrific tragedy several years after that, and just you got all the crazy Iron Sheik stories after that.
A serious question before I get out of here. Are you surprised the revival is not on Survivor Series? I mean, especially the show is being sponsored by Career Builder. I mean, on a side note, I applied for a job through Career Builder in 2008, and I still haven't heard back from them yet.
No luck.
I mean, Match.com, I was more successful getting a job than Career Builder.
Wait, do you use Match.com, but you don't use pictures of your actual face because you always cover your face on social media?
Hey, ladies love a good mystery, right, Braden?
Right. I also should be very careful. There was recently a group chat made with the BDE, myself and Davey, and Brandon from New Jersey was somehow added into the group chat without my knowledge or consent.
Okay, I absolutely don't want to know what the contents of this group chat are. So, Brandon, as always, thank you very much.
I love you guys.
Thank you, Brandon.
See ya.
Oh boy.
Are we continuing on here?
Chris from L.A. There we are. There we go.
You got to answer it first.
Chris from L.A., you're in the cafe. What's going on?
Oh, hey, what's up, man? Let me mute this because I'm okay. Nothing. Just got done teaching my last class for the day.
Great.
Brandon, Chris is a very busy professor out there making time to join us here on the Café Hangout. What is on your mind, Chris? What do you want to chat about?
I wanted to talk a little bit about this Cornette stuff and how it's gonna play out. You think has he apologized yet? Or?
No. So here was the confusion: is that on an Instagram account that looked fairly legitimate. Like you can look at the past photos and it's plugging dates for Bobby Eaton, and it's all like.
Wow.
The tip off was it was under 1,000 followers, but nonetheless there was an apology posted late Wednesday night that I assumed was legitimate. It was not. Jim Cornette has since gone out of his way to clarify he has not apologized at all. So he has not apologized, and he's going to address it Friday on his podcast and say whatever he's going to about the whole deal that went down. But Chris, I'm sure you're going to cover this with Nate on your next show, but what are some of your conclusions about this whole story and the utilization of Jim Cornette for companies out there? I mean, is this going to be kind of the end point for companies employing him, or will there be a company out there that let's be honest, he's a fantastic commentator in that role? Is he worth the risk that he obviously comes with?
Yeah, it's I grew up a big Jim Cornette fan, so it's difficult. But he's got to be held accountable for this kind of speech. It's one of those things where he's got this real archaic mindset when it comes to wrestling. And when you don't evolve, you kind of get, you get left behind. And I think he's kind of left behind at the moment. I really do. I don't think that Jim Cornette is a gratuitous racist, but this is an ongoing problem with him. I mean, in the last year, he's called several women cunts on his podcast.
Jesus.
He's
You had the Sonny Kiss incident.
He called Sonny Kiss a transvestite. He said that
there's
Justin,
the Jim Smallman thing, Justin Roberts.
So
I mean, listen, like no promotion at this point can be
touch him.
Like, no, it's not even that they can't touch him. It's that if you're hiring this guy, you understand what comes with Jim Cornette. Like, It's not a secret. You're not going to be blindsided by any comments. This is going to happen. So you have to make that. And the NWA had to know that going into this. This is not something new. He's going to speak his mind about this. He's going to offend people for sure. And I do not agree with these comments that he makes. But I'm not going to cut slack either for companies that are going to use him, because with the good that Jim Cornette can bring to your product, he is going to bring you all of this bad publicity as well. It's inevitable.
You got to hold NWA accountable as well, because this wasn't like it was live. It wasn't like it was said on a live broadcast. This was taped and edited. And why did this slip through the net?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. It's the same thing with like that Roseanne situation, right? Where she, like, ABC gave her a sitcom. They tried to, do her a solid, and she goes on Twitter. It says the stuff that she says, and it's like.
But it's up to you as the viewer, the listener, or whatever. Like you said, you grew up watching. When I got into wrestling, I went and just watched every wrestling I could ever watch, and Jim Cornette was all over it. And you know what? I was a big fan as a kid watching Jim Cornette. I thought he was a dick whenever he was on commentary. Everything, I loved it. But I myself, as a wrestling fan, as an adult, realized a few years ago, you know what? I don't follow this guy. I don't like anything he says. He says things that make me feel not good. So I unfollowed him years ago. I didn't watch Power simply because he was on it. They did a great thing, because maybe now I will watch it, because I've heard it's really good. So that's just like. So we had a guy earlier on this show saying he does not watch WWE at all because of things they've done. That's his decision. You can make the decision not to follow Cornette if he chooses to go. Don't go listen to that podcast. I'm not going to go listen to it. Don't.
Yeah, I think that's cheap as well.
Yeah, that's cheap. He wants you to listen to his podcast. So shit.
He's fully taking advantage of any type of
Well, that's the element now, is the do not apologize, because you're going to just reinforce to your base of this guy's not stepping down. This is a guy that says it like it is, and you just turn it into a censorship issue, which this is not that. But let me ask you this, Chris. Had the optics of this been different, in the sense that the NWA and Jim Cornette come out on Tuesday night apologizing, do you view that any differently if it had been an immediate apology from Jim Cornette, or do you just look at the track record that this was ultimately, that this relationship had to end?
I think ultimately this was the end result of it. Like I said, I love Jim Cornette. I met him when I was a kid. Him and Macho Man were playing miniature golf at this thing it was a WWE thing. They were playing miniature golf, and Jim Cornette purposely threw the game, being a heel. It was fun times, and I like the guy, but that kind of language doesn't fly. I block people on social media all the time just because they do that stuff. And I've been listening to you guys since I was in college, and I've just seen the way the wrestling industry has evolved since then. Because I remember back in the day where all this racial rhetoric and this hate would just kind of spill out, and I see that stuff getting frowned upon a lot more than I used to. So I think it's helpful for with shows like this, and just to have a dialogue, because I think Jim Cornette is progressive in certain areas, but when it comes to actual implementation of language and just being sensitive towards that kind of stuff, I think he's behind the times, and I wish he would change, but I mean, what is he, like 50 something? I just think he is going to be who he is, and maybe he doesn't belong in the wrestling industry. Maybe he belongs podcasting. Maybe he belongs on the fringes, but not actually, in the business.
Fair.
Yeah, I just think that overall it's not a case of going back, well, he said it so many years ago, or just looking at things that were brushed off that happened years ago. Like, we should be hopefully improving this industry,
right.
that I just think that it's, for so long you have fans that are on the receiving end of these these jokes and all of this stuff that I think just can be, the industry can just be presented in a lot classier fashion, and you move, you evolve. It's not about litigating the past of angles that were 20 years ago and being horrified at 20-year-old angles. It's okay, that's where the industry was. 2019, it's a different time. Hopefully our standards have raised along that time. It's not a bad thing to be hopefully evolving. The problem comes that you're going to get a segment of people that believe it's not evolution, that it's just the PC culture taking over. It's just, to me a more just a better presentation of wrestling to hopefully have higher standards.
And it sucks because unfortunately for Jim Cornette, he has that audio of him saying how he didn't he promoted N-word usage for angles and stuff like that, how he was fine with it. And then that started recirculating, and then people were getting mad, like saying, hey, that's a long time ago. But unfortunately, that stuff is fair game once you do something like that again, right? It's like with if you saw like Jared from Subway hanging out at a high school, you can't. It is what it is. It's there.
David has a shocked face because I think you just let David know about Jared from Subway.
I'm lost.
Oh, God. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Fill me in later.
We don't have enough time to go into the story there.
Thank you very much for the call, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. I do want to get a little bit into these shows this weekend, but any final thoughts just on that story? I guess the latest will be whatever Cornette says Friday. But listen, I think the guy is a tremendous talent. I think he's a phenomenal historian as well. But there is this element of Jim Cornette that is, that's a part of Jim Cornette as well. And this has been something that has followed him. This is not the first company that has cut ties with him.
I want to say, on the whole, I think maybe discussion about how this came through, how this got through because it was a taped show. Definitely NWA should be held accountable. I believe they are, holding themselves accountable by implementing, new, apologizing and also implementing new review procedures. But we wouldn't be having this conversation had, whoever was editing the show edited this comment out. We wouldn't be talking about Jim Cornette. We wouldn't be talking about this, what probably would have been an ongoing issue with Jim Cornette had, the editing been as I think as seamless. I mean, of course, NWA would have preferred this not hurt their reputation by coming out publicly like this. At the same time, this man should not be continually protected in the edit room every single time. So the fact that this came out, I think, is an overall positive.
Yeah, exactly. It sucks that someone didn't catch this, but at the same time, that sucks. But he's still the problem. So, to me.
All right, let's get into these shows coming up here as we are running up here on the top of the hour. So starting off with WarGames on Saturday night, we have 4 matches announced. Let's start with the first WarGames match, which is the men's match with Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong against Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, and Dominik Dijakovic with a mystery partner that it sounds like they're just going to reveal come match time or the day of. And yeah, they're teasing that it will be something big, whoever this partner is.
Predictions?
I see Team Ciampa winning this. I think it can set up a lot of title matches going forward. You can have Riddle going after Roddy again. You can have Dijakovic and Keith Lee teaming up, which I think would be awesome against Fish and O'Reilly. And obviously they're clearly building towards Adam Cole and Ciampa And I think for this to happen, the baby faces have to win.
Yeah, I think Undisputed Era should. I think they lost last year.
They
maybe.
won the first one.
Yeah.
They lost last year.
Yeah, I think they can. I think they can lose the match. Now, I think we made some predictions on Up Next that you want to see Velveteen Dream come down like Rambo, going to war in WarGames. I think that is the possibility, because other than that, I don't like. I saw some people on Twitter, and Twitter loves to be Twitter, and they're like, "Oh, it's a new signee. They're gonna bring in like a new big name," and I just don't know if that kind of makes sense. If you're just going to go up against Undisputed Era, you want someone who's got beef with them, and that is Velveteen Dream.
I feel Undisputed have the excuse as well. Like, as the heels, the next week they can go, look, we all had title defenses on Sunday, or we had bigger matches.
Sure.
Yep. So I think it makes sense that way.
Yeah, I'm interested because I do feel Cole defends his title Sunday night and comes out strong in that particular match. And then, you could have a challenger set up here with Ciampa being the natural one. I guess the question is, when do you pull the trigger on a match like that, given that we're skipping the next TakeOver in January for WrestleMania? So that's, unless you're doing this on TV or they somehow do this at that Worlds Collide tournament in January, our next TakeOver is months away.
Or they could add a TakeOver like they did with 25.
That's true. They could do one, February, I guess, would be probably what you would have to do.
Probably in the next AEW pay-per-view.
The Worlds Collide thing is weird, though, because the Worlds Collide thing is like kind of what they're doing right now with their Survivor Series, where
all the brands.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. So they maybe should take it away.
And they're really promoting that as kind of like inter-promotional matches, as opposed to doing like an NXT title match. Like it would be, you would get maybe Adam Cole versus someone on the Raw roster, or all the mixing of rosters. Then we have the women's one. This has really been shone a spotlight onto the women's division and the depth they have here. So on one side, Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Tegan Nox, and Mia Yim, while they'll have a camera on Dakota Kai watching on the network from home. Against Shayna Baszler, Io Shirai, Bianca Belair, and Kaylee Ray, who comes in to join here. And I could see Dakota Kai having some kind of involvement here as well. They are certainly pushing that story very hard of her being the weak link that didn't get chosen by Rhea Ripley. And I think this match is going to just tear down the house. I think the audience is going to be really solidly into this match. And I'm most curious to see how Shayna Baszler is coming out of this weekend, because she, to me, is one of the big stars for the next night. And this could be another case of, getting to Baszler and Rhea Ripley, which seems to be one destination.
Yeah, I see in this case, Baszler and her team winning. I think she needs to look strong going in on Sunday, and I see her winning on Sunday as well. I can see Dakota Kai getting involved. I don't think a heel turn is coming, but I can see her trying to help her team and inadvertently costing them.
Oh, no, not Dakota. Don't do it. I think
she's going to get a haircut like Bailey. And
I think the baddies will win here as well. It's interesting because there's so many storylines that I want to see Io Shirai, Shayna Baszler down the line again, but I don't think I think we will see Rhea Ripley go in that direction. So I think Team Shayna, Team Io is what I'm calling it, really. Team Io should win the
She's coming off that cage, for sure.
She's doing a moonsault off a cage, for sure, definitely. You saw what they'll do in a ladder match to promote this? You can't wait to see what they'll do inside this.
Do you see them bookending the show with WarGames?
Yeah, women should main event.
Yeah.
Women should end the show.
You think it should end?
With the women.
I think so, too. Yeah. I think it's the harder program.
Yeah, of course.
That video package that they did last night, like profiling, like look, that just like having the teams in one shot together, like making you feel like they're an actual team.
War.
I thought that shit was so good.
It's war.
It's exactly what the Survivor Series has been missing all these years.
Yeah.
The feeling like you have a union between the members of a team.
Matt Riddle, Finn Balor, this should be excellent. I imagine they're going to probably get like 20 minutes.
Easily,
we only have 4 matches, so you could probably see a match being added to this, unless you're just earmarking so much time for the WarGames matches that maybe 4 is all you want.
Maybe a cruiserweight rematch.
Yeah,
added.
we were thinking that they're adding
with Rush and Angel Garza.
Yeah. Remember, you might need time for an angle for Survivor Series as well.
You could have that at the end of the show, which I would say if that's happening at the end of the show, you could put the men on last. We'll see. But Riddle and Balor, I think that Balor needs to win this.
Yes.
I think his first
100%.
big match back. It's interesting. Riddle is kind of just in this weird spot now that, I thought there was a good chance that maybe they move him up to Raw or SmackDown at the draft. They didn't. And I don't know if it was necessarily the right choice keeping him here, other than they wanted, star power for the 2-hour show. And he's kind of just on this island at the moment.
I think he's a long-term investment.
He's definitely a long-term investment.
Yeah, I think he's kind of up next for
He's what?
He's up next for a title program following.
Definitely, he's the guy we like to say. Triple H always has these cards in his pocket or cards up his sleeve, like Keith Lee and Dijakovic. They've been chilling in NXT for a little while. Nothing. We're on 2 hours now. Oh, go put them out. Let's now it's time.
Yeah,
bring the toys
that's
out.
the type of anticipation you want for somebody just beneath the surface.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's something we were talking about AEW this morning was after Mox has that title program, you don't really have those top babyface guys there. Whereas I feel NXT you do in your Keith Lees and Matt Riddles, who can just sit there and put on cracking matches in the middle of the card and just waiting for, like, after this Ciampa Cole feud is over, I'm pretty sure one of them are going to go into that position.
Riddle is definitely a guy waiting to be the main guy. Like in a year or so, he's going to be the guy headlining the takeover. You can't wait to watch because he's fighting someone. Like he's the guy waiting. Definitely, I don't want him to go up to the main roster yet.
It does seem that NXT you do have some sort of stability now. That so often these takeovers, it was, well, you could figure out outcomes based on, well, who do you think's getting called up? And I think there's a big kind of elimination of that.
Yeah.
I still do foresee, well, we'll get into it with the Survivor Series preview of one person moving, but rounding out the card, Pete Dunne, Killian Dane, and Damian Priest, with the winner going to face Adam Cole the next night. They had initially announced this for Wednesday's episode and then was moved to Saturday, which makes more sense. I don't know how this could have fit into Wednesday's show. So, maybe this opens the show even if you don't go with a WarGames right off of the gate. But anyway, I think, does everyone see Pete Dunne going?
I can't see any of the other combinations really working.
Same arena where he had the big Tyler Bate match, which was really his WWE breakout match.
You got to remember, like, what's going to take place on Sunday is going to be very much a commercial for NXT to main roster audience, and I think you got to have your best
ones.
Maybe the best type of match that you could possibly have with Adam Cole to make him look impressive. I think you can make an argument though for either of the other two if you want to make Adam Cole, who is more of an undersized guy, look impressive in beating somebody larger than him to give him that sort of credibility.
Sure.
So I think in a way it's still unpredictable, but I go with Pete Dunne.
I think to your mainstream audience as well, they've seen Pete Dunne before. He's been in a Rumble. He's been on Raw before.
They've seen
can see them
too. Don't you remember?
Oh,
main event.
Barely. He was hanging with EC3.
Yeah.
Imagine just Vince McMahon meeting Damian Priest the next night at Survivor Series. The Archer of Infamy. That's it's a good question.
Carry a bow and arrow.
Yeah, he think he's a vampire or something.
Do you guys expect the NXT broadcast team to be there Sunday night to call that match?
Ooh,
the legend.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Of Morrow will be at Survivor Series.
I mean, they'll be in town anyway.
Morrow often announced. You're right.
Which would be Morrow's first main roster show since moving to NXT.
Yeah, interesting.
They should have him on for.
Like, it would make sense that they're. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that would make sense, especially for the NXT title.
Well,
match.
would you do a mixed booth for all the mixed matches? Would you just have a team of like?
Too crazy.
I don't like the idea of the mixed
person
booth. Yeah, that would be really tough.
No, but just one from each brand.
Right. You saw the picture where it's all the commentators put together, and everyone's like, "This is your announced team."
I think the idea of one person from every show, not necessarily a bad call at all.
I'm just picturing all like 8-9 guys, and then at the start of the match, Morrow just. Hey Vic, I got this.
Shouting all the way down the table at the other end.
That rounds out the show. I assume Dunne wins this match unless they just want to do a surprise and go with somebody else. But I think exactly, it's a commercial the next night. Cole and Dunne getting 15 minutes at Survivor Series is the safe and I think most effective.
In Chicago, it'll do really well.
Yeah, I think it's the way to go. Survivor Series on Sunday night, same building. We start off at the top. Brock Lesnar, Rey Mysterio, no holds barred match for the WWE Championship. I think this build-up has been excellent. The promos have been very strong, in particular from this past week with Heyman and Rey Mysterio, who has been, a guy that was never known for his promos, has just been fantastic in this whole program. I'm really glad they went with this as opposed to the Lesnar, Bray Wyatt, Adam Cole match. I think this was. You have a great story, and to boot, I think you're going to get a really great match out of these two. Like they had a pair of matches. This is way back in Brock's first run.
It's so good. I was actually a big fan of that.
It was just like they worked so well together with the size. Like that was the first time you saw Brock work with someone really small, and you could just see how well.
Is it where he put him on the stretcher and he smacked him against the post? with
I think
Rey
so.
Mysterio.
That was Big Show.
Oh, was that Big
Yeah.
Show? Yeah.
But this is where he brought out the Brock lock. The stretch
there
muffler.
you go.
Right.
Yeah, the stretch
So,
muffler.
I mean, granted, everyone's several years older from 2003, but I think this is going to be a really solid match.
Yes, they are older, but I think they're also better wrestlers now.
Definitely.
I think, even including Rey Mysterio, who I think at this point is much smarter and much more complete. Brock Lesnar tapping into, the whole like beast persona in this second run. We haven't seen him work against somebody, the size of Rey Mysterio and this, I think the type of wrestler that Rey Mysterio is compared to some of his prior opponents. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't think for a second that Rey Mysterio is going to win this one. It would be awesome if he did, because I would love to see a third match. Either way,
I would actually give consideration to doing it.
Because the story
Brock's
is so good.
got nobody.
The story is so good, and I don't think you've really finished it. Like, we haven't really reached an emotional climax with their storytelling yet for this. I think there's that much meat to catch.
I hope they bring this up. Morrow would if he was on the call. This is the building Ray won the title in at WrestleMania.
Whoa.
Oh, really?
Damn.
Which we were at.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
when he won it in that three-way. I was with like 100% going into this week. It was, Brock retains. It'll be a great match. But when you consider the story, he's fighting for Dominic. Brock has no opponents that are ready for him. And you put the title on Ray for, I would say, 2 months, and you can come back at the Rumble with this.
Title on Ray, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know.
I'm not expecting it, but I would not dismiss it outright. This
love
program
that.
has caught on.
for
You
it.
got to remember, like, the story right now is about Dominic. Does Ray need the title
Yes.
in order to get that
Yes, he
revenge?
does.
I mean, he's
Do you want him to fail, avenging his son's honor?
He can win somehow without, or like embarrass Brock in some way without having the title. I just don't know if Ray needs the belt in this scenario. But it's possible.
I love this angle, actually. I heard you guys talk about it, so I kind of did go watch Rey Mysterio from Raw. But I think that this match actually is bringing in fans who are like the kind of casual fans. Like, people know who Rey Mysterio is and people know who Brock is, and now they're fighting. So people are like, hey, that sounds pretty interesting. Isn't that's happening this weekend?
Either way, I hope they continue this. If
Yeah,
they can.
I kind of wanted to ride out. I'm just gonna to say I'm all of a sudden now I've seen the light. Rey Mysterio is gonna beat Brock Lesnar.
I think when you look at the Raw numbers, the idea of let's freshen things up, have the title on TV, a little Ray run that might actually spark some like interest. Like, wow, this is something out of left field. He's gotten over. You could argue he's the top babyface on
Definitely.
Raw. He has surpassed where Seth is. He's, to me, I wouldn't dismiss it outright at this point where I would have a week ago. So I'm very interested in the outcome of this, and I think the match is going to deliver. This is the thing I'm most looking forward to on a show that has a lot of interesting stuff on it. Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Shayna Baszler for brand supremacy. I feel very strongly Shayna should win this match, and I think she should pin Becky because I would like to see this be Becky's WrestleMania program. I think Shayna should come up in, early next year and have this win hanging over Becky, and Becky wants that rematch because she lost here but didn't lose the title. That's where I would go, and that's not me knowing what the plan is, but I would really like to see this culminate at WrestleMania with Becky and Shayna, and you put Shayna over really strong and not go the cheap route of her beating Bayley when the real program's Becky. I think she should get that fall on Becky, and it's the loss that Becky has to avenge and can't because they're on different brands.
I like your idea. So you're saying Bayley's taking the pin to Shayna?
I think
I just think that's a cheap
Bayley's
way out.
taking
I
the
think that
fall.
hurts Bayley, that's not the program for Shayna. It should be Becky and Shayna, so have Becky lose the fall
I
here.
think Becky could afford the fall the most out of
Sure.
everybody. Bayley is in dire need, I think, of really establishing herself. We've seen her try to maybe get some of the attention away from Shayna and Becky, but I think Shayna and Becky, to me, is at this point a bit of a dream match that I think they'd be foolish not to go ahead and book towards, and this is your time to build towards that match. So I agree with John's finish. The only question is, I could see them giving Bayley the pinfall on somebody, on Becky potentially, but that would make it would be
doesn't
kind
make
of
sense.
pointless. So I see Shayna winning it.
Yeah, you could give Shayna just like she could either just get a cover out of nowhere or like Becky passes out, doesn't tap. You can come back many different forms.
They got to come up with a finish that'll protect everybody. It's going to be one of those things for all of these championship, deals.
Viking Raiders versus the New Day versus the Undisputed Era, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, three-way tag match that, I mean, if this is given time, you should have a hell of a match with these three, which is something I think Kofi really needs to be part of something at this point, who has just been totally cast aside since the Brock loss. But yeah, this should be, if this has time, I think that this could really be a solid match.
So they don't know what to do with Kofi Kingston since, messing it up with the whole Brock thing and pissing people off. So instead, they piss us off more by taking out the Revival and putting in the New Day. I'm still excited for this match. I think it's going to be great. But I think the War Raiders should win this one. They're kind of
50-50 would say Viking Raiders and Undisputed Era got wins on Wednesday, and it's the New Day's turn. You're going to spread out these wins, so this could be your SmackDown win.
I guess so. Yeah, sure.
If Bayley's not winning in the women's match,
I have a weird thing about this match and the mid card title match is what we're calling it, the three-way there. I'm just excited to watch the match. So it doesn't matter. There's no real stakes, so I'm just cool.
I see Viking Raiders winning. I don't recall them having any tag loss yet, unless it was in a big multi-man thing.
Sure.
The Saudi Arabia gauntlet.
Right.
Okay.
That
right.
They did.
Apart from that, I can't think of anything.
Because Gallows and Anderson are the greatest tag teams in the world.
The OC.
Who are not on this show.
So I see Viking Raiders winning. I am not mad about New Day being in the match. I think New Day feel very main roster, unlike the other three teams that are NXT guys. So I think it kind of makes sense. And New Day are a top act. So I think they should be there. And especially now we had Undisputed versus the Revival last night. It's cool, I've got my fix of that. I'm good for this match now.
What if you had done, with the potential names being Ivar Radio, The Fishbowl, and Feel the Power, winning team gets a podcast, and you had made the announcement after this match.
Ivar
Teasing
Radio?
the return of The Fishbowl.
Ivar Radio?
I had to come up with that one on the spot.
You couldn't think of anything with Eric, because it's lame, Eric.
Charlotte Flair. Okay, so this is our. Let's go to the next, the mid card title match.
Sure.
AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Roderick Strong. Again, I think that there will be triple threat fatigue on this show. I am not a fan of triple threat match to begin with. That I think that we're getting 3 of them on the. I should say we're getting 5 of them on this show because the elimination matches are technically 3 ways, but 5 people per team. But nonetheless, you have some solid talent in this match with AJ Nakamura and Roderick Strong. I really think that this could be a great showcase for Roderick Strong that kind of falls under the radar when you look at the great talent NXT has. But I think that, picking who goes over here, I think it's going to come down to how they're going to break up. Each brand is going to get their moral victory.
Yeah, I see it being SmackDown for this one. I think this is where you give Nakamura a win. He is SmackDown, right?
Yes.
And you've recently set up this little stable with Cesaro and Sami Zayn. I think Nakamura winning this gives Sami Zayn a lot of fuel in promos and things, and really start to put a little bit of a rocket behind this team.
They're a new stable, right?
Yeah.
Sammy, the men's is international now. They're international. That's their group. I think this is fantastic. Roderick Strong is one of my favorite wrestlers ever. And seeing him in WWE still is mind blowing. And now seeing him Survivor Series in a match against AJ Styles and Nakamura, who I've seen fight many times, front row in certain matches. So it's just, I think this is definitely the match I'm most looking forward to. I think Roddy is going to take the L here, but I can't say I want Roddy to win,
but that's okay.
Yeah, and that's okay because
this is a match for him to showcase himself.
And they'll probably give him a lot before taking the loss.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just excited to watch this. I want to see backbreakers and Kinshasas and all that stuff because all 3 of these guys should just have fun and deliver. He's gonna be livid. Roderick Strong, Survivor Series. He's been working so hard and finally he's on this huge stage. I'm just happy for the guy.
Yeah. Adam Cole against the WarGames triple threat winner. That's for the NXT title. And then we have The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and Daniel Bryan for the Universal title. This is going to be... this is not a sure thing.
Nope.
This is all presentation, and I hope to God that the red filter is forgotten when they get to the Allstate Arena and they ditch that thing, because I think that thing is just such a negative now to the match that it's the signal that people are not going to get into it. And I would really worry about, this is not going on last. So you could put this out there and it's going to take the crowd out of this and probably take a match or 2 to recover as well. So I think you have to be very careful how you put this together. And I think ultimately Bray Wyatt retaining.
Yeah, these two had a fantastic match at the Royal Rumble
Years ago.
2014, I believe. Obviously, both of them are very different now. Bray Wyatt's pretty much a completely different person. I hate this indestructible thing. I think the Fiend character is really cool. I think the mask's really cool. But when you've created a guy who will kick out of everything, like 1800 stomps, electrocution, all that, it's like, how can Brian win? So I'm already out of the match before it's even started.
Hard for me to think about what type of match these two will have, because anything like how is somebody, after seeing like the type of matches Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins have had where they've gone through everything, like Daniel Bryan is not known as a hardcore wrestler. This is not a no holds barred match. Like, is he going to be able to go 10 minutes with him just doing drop kicks and submission holds? I can't see the Fiend selling submission holds at all. So they can either just go squash or I don't know what they do.
Yeah. This one's weird. This one
I could see Wyatt winning early.
Yeah.
I think I could see them doing it. I definitely do not see any kind of title change in this one.
I will say, again, I don't watch a lot of this main roster. I will say one of the worst things that has totally made me not interested at all is what you said about the lights. How does do people like this? Why is that an idea? I don't understand it. I hate it.
I feel it's because as soon as it's just like your regular house lights on, it's a dude wearing a mask.
Yeah, but it's...
Whereas I think when it's... Because when we see him presented, it's got the strobe lights.
Yeah.
The red lights,
Flashlights.
it makes him look more of a demon, and I think
It's just so stupid.
the worry is it just looks like a dude wearing a
Just
Halloween
get rid
mask.
He's on
and the lights are
Smackdown,
bright.
right? So get rid of just get rid of the red. Just pretend it never happened. Just move on with it.
Let's get into the elimination matches. The women's team on Raw is Charlotte Flair, Natalya, the Kabuki Warriors, and Sarah Logan, taking on Sasha Banks, Carmella, Dana Brooke, Nikki Cross, and Lacey Evans, and 5 mystery people representing NXT. So
who could they be?
Why don't we just run through the men's one as well, and then we can just give our overall thoughts. Raw has Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Ricochet. SmackDown, Roman Reigns, Mustafa Ali, Braun Strowman, King Corbin, Shorty G, and again, 5 unknown representatives of NXT. First of all, I think that you could have gotten away with just one of these. I think having 2, these are going to be just insanity to lay these matches out, and you're going to have so many eliminations. I'm not looking forward to either of these. No. I will be pleasantly surprised if it's going to be the talent that are going to have to work super hard to get these over, and I think it's going to be really tough when every 2 minutes you're going to an elimination that the audience is going to check out of these. So more power to them if these work, but I'm not going into this with any hope that they are.
I think a big mistake was keeping these teams of 5 when they could have easily kept them down to 3. I think you'd have provided way more focus for all of the individual members of the teams. As it exists, I think you'll see some very quick eliminations for a lot of these people. And so, I'm sorry, Sarah Logan. I don't see you having a long night, neither Dana Brooke. And it's kind of unfortunate because
if we get the reunion of Sarah Logan and Dana Brooke, I mean...
Yeah, watch what you say.
Oh, you're right. Was that the main event?
Come on.
They love a big... Maybe they'll be the final
They've
2.
been working all year for this.
Yeah, so... I do think there are interesting pieces to be had, though. Like, they teased Io Shirai and Kairi Sane having a face-off, so I imagine they might, rekindle that.
Yeah.
You'll do your Roman Rollins face-off.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to do all these pairings and everything, and I guess it ultimately comes down to you have the unknown that is the NXT teams that either they'll set up on Friday, Saturday, or we'll just go into this show having no idea who's representing
Triple
NXT.
H.
Yeah.
Of the people that are on these teams, who would you make the sole survivor in order to give them that spotlight?
Randy Orton.
I see
of
Ciampa.
the people that are announced, I guess.
I'm trying to just look at
I think it comes down to how you book the other matches as well, of like which brand do you put over. Like I could see Sasha Banks winning, so SmackDown gets a win. On Raw, you would think that. I think that there could be something of Reigns, Ali, and Shorty G just to give those guys something, but I don't know. Like to go a step ahead, I don't really know how much it means either. Could anyone tell me the sole survivor on either team last year?
Randy Orton.
I could not tell you.
I think both these matches are just a way to even the scores up. So going into whatever the final match is, that will be to win.
We don't know what's on the kickoff either. So one of these could be on the kickoff.
Oh, God, a kickoff.
There'll probably be another one.
What time does this show start?
7.
Yeah.
All right, we have ratings, everybody. So is everyone...
Ooh, let's go to ratings.
Wednesday Night War ratings.
Okay, so AEW. Oh, this is just perfect. AEW does 893,000 viewers with a 0.39 in the big 18 to 49 demo. NXT 916,
Whoa!
but a 0.30 in the 18 to 49 demo. Wow. So they actually more viewers for NXT, but AEW did a much higher demo rating in the key one. So AEW was higher for the night in the key demo. But yeah, in total viewership, a difference of 23,000 viewers in NXT's favor. So NXT wins their first.
So
week.
where did NXT make up the difference? What demo?
I'm gonna have to look.
Boomers
into all of this. Okay, so AEW. Let's look. Among 50 plus, it was a big win for NXT. People 25 to 54. That was AEW won that. Then
it was plus 50. The only demo I think NXT won was plus 50, which is in line with previous weeks.
Yeah. AEW won every demo except for 50 plus, but it was like that. The 50 plus was the big difference.
So how do you read these ratings? NXT on a show, I guess, filled with a lot of promotion on Raw and a lot of main roster talent. If you're Paul Levesque, what do you take away from this that perhaps worked, or would you retain, or do you look at this as a success, or do you look at it as, hey, like maybe we should have done more?
I don't see this as something you can maintain. You're going to get those spikes. It's like when you bring The Rock back to Raw. You're going to have that spike this week, but you can't bring The Rock every week to Raw. It's going to peter out. I definitely, as I mentioned earlier, I think the idea of having consolidating some championships to float between brands. So once a month, and you heavily promote the Kabuki Warriors are coming back, or you've got Viking Raiders are coming back to defend the WWE Tag Championships rather than the Raw Tag Championships. I think, not necessarily those names are going to spike, but that kind of idea would be good. But I don't want to see top to bottom filled with your Becky Lynch's and Rollins and all that.
I think overall we are seeing at least more people watching wrestling this week compared to last.
Yeah.
So is it just the idea that, I guess, Survivor Series is
really what it is?
Everything up?
It's because CM Punk came back, and now everyone watches wrestling again.
That must be it.
Yep, that's it.
Do we have some time for phone calls before we go?
Sure.
Jake has been waiting on the line for a long time. Jake, do you have any thoughts on anything going on in wrestling right now?
Hey, gentlemen, good to talk to you again. It's great to see all four of you together in the video again.
Yes, thank you. What's going on, Jake?
Doing great. So, yeah, I'm in Chicago right now. I am going to be at TakeOver Saturday, as well as AEW on Wednesday. So, got both those. Really excited for those ones. I've saved my money. I don't want to waste my time on the mainstream WWE stuff. I'll just watch in the comfort of my own home. So I'll just watch it for those. So yeah, great. Really looking forward to TakeOver on Saturday. I really hope that they don't do they don't bring the Invasion over there. I don't want to see the red and blue shirts in that show. I hope just keep it separate from there, in my opinion. So. And also, I actually want to talk about CM Punk. You guys didn't bring it up. I don't know if you guys brought it up yet this week.
No, not yet.
Okay, so I just want to say that I really enjoyed it. It was great. It was great seeing Punk taking the main roster product to task. But I've noticed that it's kind of sad to see the other panelists visibly scared to say anything that might get them into trouble, clearly when they wanted to. For example, Paige as well, when Punk was pressuring Paige, and then I was like, and then she said, oh, he's a bad influence to him and all that. So I just want to I'm just wondering, guys, how long do you think this will last with Punk in this role? Because let me just say this, I remember Talking Smack 2 years ago. That was an amazing show. It was still kayfabe, but a lot of the promos were more genuine, unscripted. But Vince didn't like that show, and he decided to take that off the network. I'm sure that he is going to hate backstage because of he's going to hate backstage. He's going to start pressuring Fox to make some changes, so make it more in line with his thoughts. So I'm just going to wonder about that. Like, how long do you think this will last before Fox gets the pressure to put the kibosh on Punk?
Thank you, Jake.
I mean, who calls the shots? I'd say it's Fox who calls the shots rather than Vince.
To an extent, man.
I mean, it's always going to be a collaboration. Like, granted, this is not Fox in the NFL, where I think that you're going to certainly yield to your major rights holder. But, this is ultimately both sides have to work with one another, and no side is trying to upset the other. I mean, they have to be able to work together. I think the fact that I think if you are Fox and you saw that first week number, that certainly gave you the ammunition to go hard after Punk and bring him in, realizing that this thing was going to flop at 49,000 viewers. Like, that was a pretty devastating number. So something had to be done, and they pulled the trigger on this. But certainly, I think everyone can watch the show. They can see what it is, what it isn't, and it's going to, like, they will go outside to a certain extent. But it's very clear what will be covered and what won't.
If the show continues at the level that we saw on Tuesday, I don't think they'll ruffle any feathers at all with Vince McMahon. In fact, like, I think it'll show, perhaps the other panelists that it's okay to criticize the TV. And I'm sure, like, I don't think WWE would really have that much issue if somebody said they didn't like the Roman Reigns or Baron Corbin promos. Like, that stuff is legitimately bad. And I mean,
but it's not like they kept talking smack. And I think that was a show that, to me, I mean, it was... But that was not very critical of the product, to me.
And that was a mistake, I think. And I think, Fox will have a lot of leeway to say, we want to produce this type of show that's not just a commercial for you guys, but something that feels credible.
They want something closer to UFC Tonight. That, yes, that was a UFC show, but it was also did have at least a safe distance from... being like the UFC Countdown show, for instance.
And it's to the WWE's benefit, ultimately, to be able to foster this type of real discussion amongst this fan base. It won't hurt them. It won't be the end of the world if CM Punk says he didn't like something. But I also don't see them going very hard on real issues that I think
they won't. They won't definitely. As soon as CM Punk shows up, a lot of people, and he starts making jokes about like Seth Rollins and the Baron Corbin thing, and
those are all like set up for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, these are all kayfabe tweets.
I'm not a big CM Punk fan, but I watched the clips of it. I had to find it, and I thought watching him on the mic.
CM Punk shoots on Seth Rollins.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, exactly. But a lot of people on Twitter were kind of like, okay, you're saying that, but you're not mentioning like, hey, what's going on with because at the time the hot thing was the Twitter with Randy Orton and Tony Khan. So people were like, hey, you want to say some real shit, then talk about that. And of course, I'm not going to talk about that, but it made it seem like, yeah, you know what, he is making fun of Baron Corbin, but they're still making you tune in and watch. So it's like, yeah, exactly.
I didn't feel they even allowed him to go off enough on it, though. They're like, what did you think of this? And he kind of gave half an opinion, and then they're like, oh, we can't really talk about that. And I wonder how long in that format CM Punk will want to stay doing that.
Just one final note on the ratings. I think that they did hold up pretty well, and the last hour they did go against the Democratic debate that did 6.6 million viewers as well. So you did have that as a factor, and so there you go. That was the ratings notes. That we'll have a rundown on the website coming up. So that is going to wrap up the show. I want to thank Davey and Braden for joining us once again. You can go check out patreon.com/upnext. Our Survivor Series draft will be up late tonight. And then you guys will be back here Sunday night for our Survivor Series post show, which if you're a double, ice cap, or espresso member of the cafe, you can watch that show live and call in immediately after Survivor Series. We'll take calls on both shows.
Their TakeOver post show, of course, as well on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday night on our free feed, wherever you get your podcast. You can follow Up Next, subscribe, all that stuff. Help us out. Follow our Up Next Twitter account at Up Next Podcast. You can follow myself and Davey on our personal ones. I am at the Brady.
And I'm at Davey Portman. And join us for our YouTube. Like, join in the discussion, because we'll be going live after WarGames on our YouTube channel, BDE Official.
Yeah, so we have all these shows coming out, and we can't wait to invade Brand Supremacy Sunday night Survivor Series.
Goodbye, everybody. You've been warned.